So you've come here for the truth. Well, we've got the truth and nothing but the truth. Here are your hosts, Robert A. Bianchi and David J. Bruno.
Welcome to WMTR's Nothing But the Truth. Your hosts, Bob Bianchi and David Bruno. David, we've been asked by a couple of people to do a recap and try to get the themes of some of the guests that we've had here on the radio show, which also translates into podcast. Saturday's the radio show at 10:30. The podcast comes out on Wednesdays, and it's really been amazing. I've loved the response that we're getting from our family, friends, and supporters. And actually, your dad actually reached out to me and said he was inspired the other week.
I know. I'm so proud of the product that we're putting out there. I mean, these guests are inspiring, and they have real life takeaways for how they got to where they are. And oftentimes we learn that it's not all positivity. It's people are struggling through certain events that they learn from and get past to really get to the places that they're at. And also, look, I mean, we're on the radio, and it's a regular radio show. But then what we do is we also put it out on podcast, and it's also available on video. And sometimes it's better to watch on video even after you've listened to the radio show. And you can go to the landing page to get those videos. It's nothingbuttetruthpodcast.com. Subscribe to the podcast, watch the videos, a lot of great takeaways from the guests, and we'll sum up and recap some of those today.
Yeah, and so, the concept when we came up with this, Nothing But the Truth, was about that person's truth. While we've had very famous people on the show so far, we also want to try to bring on some folks that are doing great work in the community that may not have as great name recognition as some of the guests we've had. But what I found interesting so far, Dave, is you could tell from each of the guests that we're going to do a recap today is so much about mindset, not necessarily about the technical skills they had that made them a success.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, oftentimes many people may look at the title of this show and the backgrounds that we have as former prosecutors running a high-end criminal defense firm and think that Nothing But the Truth is a legal related show. But in fact, it's not at all. This is a mindset show. And when we talk about Nothing But the Truth, it's our guests' truth and what they've gone through and how they've gotten to where they are. And that's what I love most about this. We have law practice, and we deal with individuals that are going through very tough times in their lives. Oftentimes they're charged with crimes or going through restraining orders and domestic violence, or charged with DWI or municipal court offenses. But in the end, these people need help. They come to us at their low points. And I think that's what makes us very different about our law office, is that we're treating the whole person. We're trying to get to what these individuals need, referring them out to counseling and helping them through these struggles. So these stories, they work well for our clientele who are experiencing some hardships in their lives presently, and also the people that are listening to the radio show in the car or listening to the podcast or watching the videos. I think there's real life takeaways from every single guest that we've had on this show to date.
So, something I just amplify with that is that when we have trained trial lawyers in the art of trial practice, it is a performance. It's very intense. There's fear. There's the unknown. It's very hard to stand up in front of a group of people, especially in the beginning of a case, and cross-examining witnesses and knowing people. We often use that analogy of the man in the arena, the Teddy Roosevelt quote, which was gender specific, but it could apply to anybody. That person that's in that theater and they have to perform, as opposed to being in the cheap seats watching people perform and critiquing. And so for each of these guests, what I like is every one of them is in the arena. And so the mindset that they have is very similar to the mindset that we have as trial lawyers, and I think it applies to everyone in your personal and professional life. That's what's beautiful about this. These are like universal truths we're going to go over that these folks talked about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As trial lawyers, we are representing individuals and their interests. And it's an awesome responsibility to be in that position to really defend individuals charged and walk into a courtroom and cross-examine, to your point. But also when you're in front of a jury, when you're in front of 12 people that have to make determinations as to whether or not prosecutors have proved cases beyond a reasonable doubt. I mean, what better awesome responsibility that we have and to represent individuals during that process. So I am taking away things from our guests that apply to my personal life, my business, and also in the courtroom. I think that's exceptional, and what the conversations that we're having here.
Yeah, I like to think that technical skills, you used to always hear me say this when I was a prosecutor, I can teach anybody technical skills, but I can't teach you as to who you are as a person, your mindset as a person. And the lawyers, the trial lawyers, much like yourself, and I hopefully think myself as well, that had that je ne sais quoi, as I used to call it, or as we call it, is I really think comes down to mindset. So let's jump into a couple of these guests that we've had. Maybe you can talk to us a little bit about the professional background of Ryan Doherty.
Yeah, Ryan is an entrepreneur. He has come up with a company that sells slippers. And what he brought to the market is really these fashionable slippers that look like sneakers. And I think it's a great business model, and there's some great takeaways that we had with Ryan.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you know, whether you're a trial lawyer or you're a guy that's selling slipper shoes, you know, who's become like this mega successful guy. I loved what he said when he talked about when your family and friends are down on one of your ideas. Let's take a listen to that clip.
You know, when your friends and family are maybe down on one of your ideas, it's typically not from a place because they think you're stupid or they think your idea won't work. It's usually just comes from a place of love. And that's what happened for me. You know, my friends and family were a little bit worried that this thing wasn't going to work out, or that it wasn't going to, you know, go the way I imagined it. But really, they just wanted me to have health insurance and to be safe and to, you know, have money to pay rent and things like that. So if I'm completely fair, not everybody thought it was a brilliant idea. And in fact, most did not think it was a good idea. But now I have turned quite a few of them.
Dave, that's so true and resonates with me in my life. There were many things that I did as a young person that made me the trial lawyer that I am today, and in things that I'm doing now that are making me whatever the next iteration of myself is going to be, that many people said, you can't do it, you shouldn't do it, nobody else does it. Well, perfect example is me trying that last murder case we tried as prosecutors when everybody told me when I was a county prosecutor not to do it, it's a bad idea. Everybody was down on the idea. What happens if you lose? You're the top guy. And I look back on it now and I'm saying, if I hadn't done that, not only would have I developed even a deeper relationship with you, which is an ancillary benefit, of course, but I would have regretted that for the rest of my life if I had listened to the smart, quote unquote, advice and played it safe. So talk to me what Ryan Doherty's message in that regard means to you.
Yeah, well, look, I think it's very important to explore and get feedback from others when you have initial concepts. When you're starting out a business, when you're taking a new adventure, etc. Right? So it's important to get feedback so that you're not making all the decisions yourself, because I don't think that one person understands or knows everything. But at the same time, you have to make your own decision. And there are times when family, friends, your associates may not see the same vision. So while it is important to explore feedback from others, ultimately the buck stops with you. You have to make your own decisions. And sometimes you may go against the grain and break through to successes that maybe others didn't see initially.
Yeah, another great insight he had was about time. And I liked it because he kind of brought it into the past, present, and future. Of course, you know, you can learn from the past, but you got to walk away from that. The present is the only time that you have an opportunity to actually affect change. And the future, if you're looking towards it, be very, very careful, because that can be a daunting thing as well. But let's listen to what Ryan had to say about the mindset with regard to time passing away.
I don't know that there's one life skill set you can have, but definitely one mindset that you can use is the time is going to pass anyways. So if you're not happy now and you're worried about where you're going to be in 5 or 10 years, the time is going to pass anyway. So you might as well take it, betting on yourself, risking, you know, your future on something that you actually want to do and try to do.
Yeah, Dave. I mean, I think that's amazing. You know, time, I think, you know, it goes by very quickly, and you're at the end of some phase of your life or at the end of your life. And I used to be an EMT, and I used to listen when people were failing, talking about all the things they wished they had done, but they were afraid to do it, and how important the present moment is to just go out and do it. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, time is probably the most valuable thing that we have, because nobody knows how much time they have. And certainly if you're continuing to look forward, it is critical to maximize the time. I mean, look, I was in a car accident not too long ago, and I look back on that, it could have been my last day. So I look, and oftentimes I reflect on some of those things, and others may have some similar experiences, but you just never know when it's your time, and just take advantage of that present moment and take advantage of every single piece of time that you have.
Yeah. Not looking back and regretting you hadn't done something. All right, let's go on to Bruce Buffer. Give us a little introduction on Bruce, because he's a pretty fascinating guy.
Yeah, Bruce Buffer, another entrepreneur, and he's recognized for his trademark phrase, "It's time." He's in the Octagon, a UFC announcer. He's also a mixed martial artist. He talked to us about being a poker player and being able to read individuals. And he's maximized his what he has into various different spirits, alcohol, and energy drinks and things like that. So he takes away this like experience in mixed martial arts, a combat sort of one-on-one type affair, into the business world, which I love to hear.
Yeah, he's very, very versatile. One thing that I really liked was his thoughts about honesty, being honest with yourself. Let's take a listen.
Failure is a questionable comment, right? If you haven't won the fight, did you fail? No, you just lost the fight. It doesn't mean you failed completely because you performed well, right? The other thing is that if you have failed at something, then ask yourself and be honest with yourself when you look in the mirror, why did I fail? What did I do wrong, right? And learn from that. Learn from your experiences.
Dave, I can't, I think that quote is so real. And you know that I've said this many times as a trial lawyer. You have to look into the mirror, I used to like to say, and I don't see the reflection of Brad Pitt. Okay. I see the reflection of myself with the flaws and I have. Same thing with anything we're doing in our lives. Everyone knows that sometimes success is the birth of something that was a failure before, but it's being honest with yourself. And we've seen so many people, even in our practice, that are so delusional and unwilling to recognize and see what it was where they made a mistake, that they're never able to take a corrective and more positive action. So talk to me, in your mind, how important is being honest with yourself? And being honest with yourself doesn't mean beating yourself up. I'm horrible, I'm terrible. It's a recognition that we all make mistakes. The question is, are we going to learn from them?
Yeah, I think that this quote that Bruce gave us right there is a theme that we see practically in every single guest on the show. And that is, look, we're going to make mistakes. There's going to be some failures, but you got to learn from them. You have to reflect. You have to have some positive takeaways from that. Don't get too down on yourself. Move forward in a positive way. Rebound. And oftentimes we learn our best lessons from failure and mistakes.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize, because I'm one of those that is like uberly critical of myself in certain areas, not all areas of my life. And in those areas where I am, I try to make sure that I give myself that mental pause to say, you're not bad, you didn't do a bad thing, or you're not bad at what you do, but recognize what it is and just correct it, because there are some people that fall into perfectionism. And I don't fall into perfectionism in all areas of my life for sure, but I do in other areas. And I love those areas. I tend to, the areas I really love, I tend to be more perfectionist about it. I think that maybe that's common, but it's really important too. Those who don't ever see that they make mistakes, okay, that's a problem. But on the other end of the spectrum, putting it in perspective that you're not going to be perfect, and don't let perfection be the enemy of the good.
Reminds me, one of our favorite books, The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown, someone that we've trained with, and we regularly use that book to help our clients through the issues that they're dealing with.
Yeah. All right, you're listening to WMTR's Nothing But the Truth, Saturdays, every Saturday morning at 10:30 a.m. And, of course, on Wednesday on our podcast, Nothing But the Truth, and on video, as Dave likes to let everybody know. We'll be back on the other end. Please stay with us.
At the Bianchi Law Group, our team of former prosecutors and certified criminal trial attorneys specialize in criminal defense and domestic violence cases. When you need a law firm with courage, compassion, and the commitment to fight for you, call the Bianchi Law Group today.
All right, welcome back to WMTR's Nothing But the Truth. Bob Bianchi and Dave Bruno here. We're going over a recap of some of the most important statements and concepts that our great guests have had so far. Of course, you can find us on podcast, Nothing But the Truth, and actually see the videos. They're really great guests. Dave, Austin Holman.
Yeah, Austin Holman is one of my childhood friends. who's a football coach, Scotch Plains football coach. He also is a head track coach at Elizabeth. He played for Urban Meyer in college, and he's been coach to a lot of NFL athletes that have played for him and then have excelled into the NFL in professional sports. So Austin comes with this great role as a mentor in the community for young individuals. And it's really a great interview to listen to because he relates to the athletes and his students better than anybody I have ever seen. And that's what makes him such a great coach.
Yeah, he's always talking about the idea of doing the best that you can and being disciplined as opposed to regretting not being disciplined and what it takes to be great at what you do. Let's take a listen to that.
Everything. Because I always say there's two pains. There's the pain of discipline, and then there's the pain of regret. Which one after every action do you want to have? Do you want to be the one that's hurting to do all the right things? Because it hurts to be disciplined, but it hurts even more when you have to have the regret of not doing the discipline. A question was brought to me: your best athletes are your best players. What kind of mindset do they have, and what that they have to have? And Coach Meyer, when I was in college, used to always say, he does everything right. You want to be that player that does everything right. It sounds very cliche, but if you are constantly trying your best to do everything right, most of the time things are going to work out for the best. And that's just that's that discipline versus regret right there. If you're just trying to do everything right and do it the right way. If the coach tells you to run 10 yards, you don't go 9.5, and that's kind of the mindset. You got to try your best to do everything right.
Okay, Dave, I guess we can see why it is that Austin is such a famous coach in his own right and has coached some that have gone on to their professional successes, because I'm sure that those messages are drilled into his students. Yeah, sure.
I mean, when Austin talks about discipline, he's talking about discipline in the context of his athletes in a game. But you know what? That discipline also bleeds into our personal lives as well. The discipline to be focused in whatever it is you're doing, to know your purpose, to know where you're going. Discipline, another theme that I think we've seen in pretty much every single guest that has come through our show.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Katie K. We met at Mega Success, JT Foxx's event. Really an amazing person. Why don't you give us a little bit of her background?
Katie K., another entrepreneur, a young entrepreneur. She really came and talked about not only being successful in business, but scaling the business, talked about systems and procedures, and also surrounding yourself with the right partners and employees and staff, and really being positive in a sense that it's important to surround yourself with people you trust and that you could rely on.
I think one of the amazing things that she brought out, and many of our guests have as well, because we're only doing snippets here, is that relationships are 90% of the reason why she became a millionaire and so successful at such a young age. And building those relationships means also not necessarily ones that may benefit you. It's by connecting other people together. And she says it always winds up coming back.
Relationships is the only reason I had built that company out and done what I did during the pandemic. So building relationships, you should spend 90% of your time building relationships. Business comes down to fundamentals. So I'm a big believer, it doesn't matter the product or the service. To run a business is essentially the same way in every industry. But knowing people and having those connections and, talking about the ego thing, making sure that sometimes you just connect two people and let them see what happens. Well, we can take it back to the cookie cutter analogy of they need to go back to a recipe. They need to have something that's concrete, that's a rock, that they know that if they're excelling past their standard operating procedures, right? So they need to know that this is how we run. This also shapes our culture. This also shapes what we represent. Operating procedures can be day-to-day tasks. They can be vision. They can be culture. They can be so many things.
Dave, I think that you cannot underestimate the nature of relationships. I think if we look back and reflect on our careers, All of our careers were based on the relationships we had. We may not have even known it at the time, but she's talking about focusing on concentrating those relationships, even if they don't benefit you. I think it is such a powerful message.
Sure. I mean, I could even personally relate to this point in a sense that I remember back when I met you, Bob. I mean, we were representing the same individual, and we were called to the federal courthouse one summer for an emergent hearing. And little did I know that the Bob Bianchi that I was with on that day was going to be appointed to be the Morris County prosecutor in the county that I grew up in. And I always wanted to be a prosecutor. I was watching court TV in college thinking that I want to do this one day. And you just never know who you're going to come into contact with. And you know what? Be good. Be kind to people. Because in the end, the relationships that you build can advance your career, may have an impact on you, or may even change your life forever.
Right. And how many times have I said to you, and we've wanted to do something, and we've done so many eclectic and odd things for lawyers. You know, people are like, you lawyers don't do that. No, lawyers do go train with Brene Brown, at least we do, sure, and learn about, you know, the psychological processes in order to help our clients. Maybe they don't do podcasts and radio shows, but we do. Maybe they don't go try a case with the people, but we do, you know. Yeah. So I'm thinking about like all the relationships. I've always said that whatever it is that we're looking to do, there's someone in our Rolodex, there's someone in our orbit that could make this happen. We just don't know who it is. I mean, how many times in your career you're like, oh, I know so-and-so. And so, yeah, it's building those relationships from a business point of view that's important as well.
Bob, how about the course that we're working on right now? We are working on a course to teach lawyers how to develop those strategic relationships. Because look, I mean, we're here and we practice criminal defense, domestic violence, and municipal court cases. And we're getting calls for personal injury cases, employment cases, all kinds of cases that we don't handle. And you know what? We want to help people. You know, we don't want to just hang up the phone and say we don't handle those cases. We want to develop strategic relationships with individuals that can make other people's lives better. And that is something that we're going to work on, put a course together. We're going to teach others how to do it.
Yeah. I mean, during the COVID period of time, we had a lot, we refused to accept defeat. Yeah. We were like, we're going to build relationships with people. That's how we started, even if it's calling people saying, how you doing? You know, just, you know, and at least to do something rather than to do nothing. And that inertia that we created during that year and a half while it was during a horrible time really started getting us introduced to other people. And we started building all these very, very powerful relationships to the point where I remember sitting talking to you maybe a year and a half ago. I'm like, man, we are learning so much. And our colleagues are asking us, like, how did you guys do this? And how did you go? And I look at it and I'm like, I can't even explain it. There was so much that we did to change. So I'm really looking forward to this next project of being able to help other people. And you know what? I don't care if they're in our practice area or they're not in their practice area. I just care about the fact that we have an ability to change lives positively.
Absolutely. I mean, we had an aha moment. Let's call it what it was, Bob. Courthouses shut down. People were quarantined. They weren't leaving. And we have a law practice, a service industry that depends on individuals that need us. And all of a sudden, we had to look deep and we had to reinvent ourselves. We had to pivot in a way, and it changed our business forever in the positive with systems and key performance indicators and all the whatnot. And look, we're gonna teach others how to do it too. It's not something that we're gonna cover up. We want to help others do what we're doing, and I look forward to announcing that course that we're rolling out relatively shortly.
I never would have believed in a million years that the courts would ever close down for anything. I just never, when it was first mentioned, like in the beginning of March of 2020, I laughed and said that'll never happen. Well, it happened.
It did.
And we had an epiphany and we had a big turnaround. I'll tell you one reason I'm excited about it. I don't want to belabor the point, but it actually makes your law firm better at what it does.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we were a smaller shop back before COVID. It was me and you were the lawyers, and we had Robert as our office manager and some ancillary help. We have like quadrupled, quintupled the size of our office during this period of time, but we've actually made it so that we monitor it and we have the standard procedures and the things that we're doing to ensure quality control. And I'm really excited about the results we're getting consistently across the board, but we would not have been able to do it. Once again, if it weren't for the tragedy of COVID, we would have probably just kept on going on the way we were going on.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
All right, let's do. I love doing these recaps. JT Foxx. Okay, I don't know. He's our boy, JT Foxx. How do we describe him?
I don't know. Where's your tie, Bob? Where's your mega success tie?
I don't have a tie on.
I know. We were on a call with JT Foxx this morning.
Yeah.
I mean, JT Foxx is our coach, and believe it or not, JT Foxx came up with the name of this show. He's really given us some great ideas to expand and go in different directions. And JT Foxx is another one about relationships. Building the relationships. And that's really what he stands for, and it's worked for him. He created that organization called The Founders. He's got the Mega Success event that we attended and spoke at, and certainly is an important part of what we're doing now.
Yeah, I found what was interesting about JT because JT can kind of be an in-your-face kind of guy when he gives his lectures and stuff. He's very direct. He makes a point of saying, "Look, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to be very direct with you." And some people can't take that kind of heat. I've never personally found it to be, uberly aggressive. Nevertheless, he talks about fear stopping the dreams of people and overthinking. Let's take a listen to that.
And there's three types of things inside us. You have fear, fire, and permafrost. Fear is the thing that stops dreams, makes people overthink, procrastinate, come up with excuses. Fire is that passion, that enthusiasm that I have, that both of you have, that many people that are watching this still have. And then the permafrost is there's something frozen inside us. It could be a past relationship, past failure, our parents. And if we try to put good soil on top of the permafrost, it's still frozen. And so we have to de-thaw the permafrost. Whatever you're weak at, that's why you're not earning your worth. Whatever's frozen inside, eventually it de-thaws and it consumes you. Now, the fire will often burn the fear off, but it will never replace the permafrost. And so we are our own best asset, but also our own worst enemy, right? Every time you're successful and you're trying to do something great, right? There's someone who wants to take it away, or you have a roadblock. So you can't cry about it. You got to go next deal, next client, next opportunity. Because if you just dwell in your own sorrow, you're never going to grow as a human being. And I think that's growth that I probably wouldn't kind of had earlier on in my ages. But that's what happens when I get coaching. There's just say, let it go, on to the next one.
Dave, this gets us right back to how many times when I was the county prosecutor and everything that we train the trial lawyers, or when we're doing the bar association lectures, that we talk about the idea of people who are overthinking, procrastinating. He uses the terms fire and permafrost. It's all really the same kind of thing, is that if perfectionism being the enemy of the good, and if you're overthinking a thing, and we all do it, yep. we all do it. But I find that before I start a trial or before I go on TV, I have all this knowledge and I'm thinking, and then I finally put myself in a state of peace and just start speaking from the heart. I'm not going to be able to anticipate everything that's going to happen. It makes me much more relaxed. But how much overthinking stops people from pursuing their dreams?
Sure. I love this quote because of the permafrost reference, as well as fire and fear. Fire will often burn the fear off, but it's the permafrost that lays deep. It could be a past relationship. It could be a fear and things like that. So really understanding the issues that you have and having the fire that's burning the fear, but also understand that you have to continue to look within to get past some of the things that hold you back.
Yeah, one other thing I always want to say about JT, and I respect, JT is uberly successful, an extremely wealthy guy. He does not have to be doing these business courses and things. This is, again, the thing where he's giving back, which I love. But he also talks to the idea about being rich with relevance. Talk to me. I know you like that. You hear it a lot. It's really so important. It's the essence of who we are, not maybe the rich part, like not that rich like him, right, but the relevance piece. That's where the true value is.
Yeah, being relevant. And he gave us the example of providing food to the needy or the poor. And it's not about doing that and then getting a billboard and then publicizing it and trying to get something from it. It's really being relevant in a sense that give back, help people, and do it quietly. Because in the end, that is a mindset. That is a mindset. Be that mindset. Start thinking in that way. And ultimately, things will flow back to you when you don't expect it.
Yeah, and for a guy like JT, when you see his public persona, you wouldn't know that what's underlying that is a lot of deep philosophy about how to help people. That's really driving him.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah. All right, that's it for our first of the two. Next week, we'll have this part 2 of our recap series, Dave, of our guests that we've had on here. Really amazing stuff. But I also like the opportunity every now and again for me and you to dialogue about what they've said, because so many of the things we find ourselves going, oh my God, yes, 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 yes. So it's our way of kind of being a guest too.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we covered a number of quotes from our guests just now in this first recap. And all of the videos, the podcast is available on the landing page, nothingbuttetruthpodcast.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
The Bianchi Law Group, a team of former prosecutors and certified criminal trial attorneys.
But here's the thing. He put himself in a box when he said...
Relied on by CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, Law and Crime, and news leaders across the country for our criminal defense expertise.
In a search warrant, you have to have probable cause that a crime's been committed and there's evidence in a particular place.
When you need a law firm with courage, compassion, and the commitment to fight for you, call the Bianchi Law Group today.